When it comes to economic policy, you guys will not be surprised to learn that I'm of the belief FDR was the best president that we've ever had. LBJ actually wasn't too bad on economic policy either. He did the war on poverty. I mean, he actually was, even though he was a deep and committed racist guy who dropped the N-bomb like nobody's business, this guy also signed the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. But really, FDR was a league above and beyond when it came to economic issues compared to any other president. The New Deal, of course, was transformational, and it helped get us out of the Great Depression, helped redistribute wealth from the economic royalists to the working class. And his legacy has been long forgotten and tarnished by today's neoliberal corporate Democratic Party. This is a man who, because of his policies, he won 4 presidential elections. He was in there before term limits became a thing. He won 4 presidential elections. There was a time when the Democrats held 80% of the House and 80% of the Senate. Why? Because when you deliver for the people deliver for you. So, knowing that legacy, this is what he proposed, and then he died before he was able to see this through. He proposed a second Bill of Rights, an economic Bill of Rights. A lot of people don't know this history. You guys might, because you watch this show. A lot of people don't know this history. He proposed all this stuff that you see on screen right now. A right to a job. A right to an adequate wage and decent living. A right to a decent home. A right to medical care. A right to economic protection during sickness, accident, old age, or unemployment. And a right to a good education. Now, again, today, if somebody brings this up, they're called a Marxist, they're called a communist, they're called insane, they're called fringe, they're called unrealistic, they're called not pragmatic. They're called every negative thing in the book from everybody in the establishment, whether it be other politicians or media figures. You're basically viewed as an unserious person if you support these things. That's how you're viewed. Well, guess what? We are lucky enough to be living at a time when there's a presidential candidate running who's decided, I want to revive all these things. I want to revive the second Bill of Rights, an economic Bill of Rights, because this is the path the country should go down. So Marianne Williamson delivered a speech the other day. Phenomenal speech. Guys, I can't ask for anything more from a presidential candidate than what you're about to see right here. In fact, I would argue this might even go above and beyond Bernie Sanders 2016, Bernie Sanders 2020. Reviving this and making it a centerpiece of your campaign is really something. So here's Marianne Williamson announcing her new plan, her program that she's running on. Let's listen.
He introduced the concept of an economic Bill of Rights. He believed that this would solidify and codify the right of every American to life, to liberty, and to the pursuit of happiness. Now, of course, corporate executives opposed his ideas, and they opposed them vehemently. But in Roosevelt, we had a president who simply didn't care. His response was, I welcome their hatred. Roosevelt did not live to see the realization of the Economic Bill of Rights, but the idea was kept alive, including in the 1960 Democratic platform, as well as the urging of Martin Luther King Jr. There are echoes of it in the current revitalization of the American labor movement. And I introduce it now as the economic U-turn that is the heart of my presidential campaign. Once again, the people of the United States are demanding economic justice, and the Democratic Party should be listening to those demands, responding to those demands, and turning them into political power. When I'm president, I will. Now, I'd like to propose a 10-point 21st century Bill of Rights, an economic Bill of Rights to include, number 1, the right to a job that pays a living wage. Franklin Roosevelt said these words in 1933. It seems to me, he said fully plain, that no business that depends for existence on paying less than living wages to its workers has any right to continue in this country.
Isn't it incredible that that is viewed as a controversial statement? A stance that is outside of the Overton window, that's not allowed in polite discourse, in civil discourse. in the US, in the official circles? Because that seems like such a common sense thing to say. You have a right to a living wage, a right to it. Again, I can't ask for anything more from a presidential candidate than this. I can't do it.
Those words seem almost radical today, but they're radical only in that they are radically American. They give teeth and meaning to the idea that our country actually belongs to our people. Our task is to create in our time a social contract in which the ability of hardworking Americans to reap the benefits of their work and of their tax dollars is given primacy over the ability of huge corporate entities to earn more short-term profits. We must slay the sacred cow of trickle-down economics and return America's engine of prosperity to the American people. A living wage in America's cities today is so far beyond our current federal minimum wage that it leaves a third of our workforce without the ability to find a place to live. As soon as I enter the White House, I will sign an executive order that any worker in the public or private sector who is paid by way of a federal contract will be paid a living wage. Number two, the right to a voice in the workplace through a union and collective bargaining. I support the passage of the PRO Act, giving all workers the right to organize and protecting them from union-busting activities around the country. This law will nullify throughout the country the so-called right-to-work laws that so seriously undermine unions. I will also bolster the power and resources of the National Labor Relations Board so that it can more vigorously perform its mission of protecting and supporting the rights of labor. Number three, the right to universal quality health care. I join a majority of Americans in support of a universal health care in the form of a Medicare for All type plan. In the United States today, 1 in 4 Americans carry medical debt. 85 million Americans are uninsured or underinsured. People put GoFundMe pages on the internet in order to pay for life-saving operations for themselves and for their loved ones. Others ration their insulin or go to Mexico or Canada to buy it at a price they can afford. Tens of thousands, some say millions, die every year from lack of health care in America, and 500,000 Americans go into medical bankruptcy. Every other advanced democracy has universal health care, and so should we. The insurance company industry is a leech, not only on our economy, but on people's lives. And with universal health care, that tyranny will end. Number 4, the right to a cost-free higher education. An educated population is an empowered people, and forces which seek to limit the ability of Americans to educate themselves are working in direct contradiction to the principles of the Declaration of Independence. Education is a path to self-actualization as well as prosperity. It is a path to expanding one's mind and one's opportunities. It is also fundamental to a democracy. My goal as president will be a world-class public education made available to every American, from preschool all the way through college and tech school. Tuition-free college was available in many states in America until the 1960s and 1970s. Turning the education of our youth into a profit center for greedy financial institutions, saddling those who are only trying to better their lives with the huge immoral burden of college loan debts is a travesty of economic justice.
Compare Marianne Williamson to Joe Biden. Compare her to Joe Biden. In every single way, she goes above and beyond him. Even just at the basic face value level of, like, ability to communicate, ability to speak a coherent sentence. But here we're talking about a serious agenda. Now ask yourself a question. Why have you not heard a word about this? I'm sure, with you guys watching this video, even people who are as into politics as most of you are, what percentage of you actually heard about this before I'm showing it to you right now? What percentage of you actually heard about this? I'd be surprised if it's over 25%. I'd be shocked if it was over 25%. Why? Because the fix is in. Look, I would rather have the media cover Marianne and be unfair to her, cover her and disagree with her, than treat her with absolute indifference. This is journalistic malpractice. This is negligence that this isn't discussed at all. Just to lay out the rest of it for you, we're not going to listen to the whole speech. I highly recommend you do listen to the whole speech. Here's her proposal for a new economic bill of rights. The right to a job that pays a living wage. The right to a voice in the workplace through a union. the right to quality universal health care, the right to a cost-free higher education, the right to good, affordable housing, the right to clean environment and healthy planet, the right to a meaningful endowment of resources at birth. That idea is baby bonds. So if you get born into poverty, you're no longer actually born into poverty. At least you'll have some material well-being in order to have a chance at a decent life. The right to sound banking and financial services. Bring back Glass-Steagall. Bring back Glass-Steagall. Regulate the predators. Regulate the economic royalists who've brought us into a new gilded age. Stop all these endless bailouts of people who are only getting it because they're politically connected. They've paid their bribes to these corrupt politicians, and that's why they rush in to bail out, say, Silicon Valley Bank. We saw this same thing all over again. We originally saw it in 2008 with the subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession and the Wall Street bailouts, and then they turned around and had the nerve to pay bonuses to the same people who crashed their own companies. The right to an equitable and fair justice system, the right to cultural and civic involvement in democratic life. She is reviving FDR's Economic Bill of Rights. I can't imagine a more serious candidate with more serious policy than this. And like I said, nobody in the media is making a peep about it. Nobody. At the very least, independent and new media, who is somewhat ideologically in agreement with Marianne Williamson, should cover it and cover it fairly. But instead you hear nothing. You hear nothing because the fix is in. They don't want you to know she's an option. Because she's an outsider. She's not bought. She hasn't played the game. She's not part of the swamp. Ask yourself a question. Why has Nikki Haley gotten much more coverage? Tim Scott, much more coverage than Marianne Williamson when Marianne Williamson is polling higher than both of them combined? Why is that? Because they're running cover for Joe Biden. That's why. Mainstream media in this country, with the exception of Fox News are Republican propagandists, mainstream media in this country are corporate Democrat apologists. That's who they support. And because of that, they won't even let you know there are other options out there. So listen, guys, I don't want to be dramatic here, but it's on us, right? It's on us. It's on you. It's on me. It's on other new media outlets to get the word out there. Thankfully, Marianne Williamson is gigantic on TikTok. The Zoomers know what's up. The Zoomers know what's up, but not many other people do. And so understand something. If this campaign doesn't take off, you know, you hate to point fingers elsewhere, but sometimes it's factually accurate. If this campaign doesn't take off, it's not because she's not doing her job. It's because the media is not doing its job. And that's a shame, man. Like I said, I'd rather have negative coverage of her. That's how Trump got to the White House, right? Endless, breathless coverage. They couldn't look away from the show. And they bashed him and they bashed him. But at the same time, there was a backlash to that. And he found his own supporters. And originally in 2016, it was enough to win the White House. I'd rather have the negative coverage than have no coverage. But they decided, let's settle on no coverage. Go look. See if they talked about it on CNN. See if they talked about it on MSNBC. Even for 12 seconds. See if they talked about it. They didn't. They didn't. Journalistic malpractice, negligence. Every one of them should be fired for not doing their job. Can't imagine somebody being, in all sincerity, being earnest about supporting Joe Biden over Marianne Williamson. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. It's all manufacturing consent for the zombie president who is a weaker option in a general election, mind you. But I salute Marianne Williamson. I love this proposal. Reviving FDR's Economic Bill of Rights. It's, you can't ask for anything more than that. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.